What's up everybody, Trinity here, and welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Terminator Dark Fate. Now before I get into that, please make sure you're subscribed, click the little bell and all of that good stuff. So Terminator Dark Fate, this movie is a sequel basically to Terminator 2 that came out in 1991. They're kind of scrubbing away all the sequels that came after that. And of course this is obviously a sequel to the first Terminator movie as well that premiered in 1984. And I want you to keep those kind of time frames in mind as some of the stuff I'm going to discuss later in the video. So first, this movie stars Linda Hamilton coming back to reprise her role as Sarah Connor. It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back to play the Terminator, the T-800. It also has Gabriel Luna coming in to play the new Terminator, also known as the Rev-9, I believe. We've also got Mackenzie Davis coming in to play the new character Grace, who is, you know, I guess you could say a human Terminator hybrid kind of thing, or is it Vision? Hell, I don't know. Then we've also got Natalia Reyes coming in to play Dora. So basically what happens here is we see that after a long night of exploring through the forests down in Mexico, Dora returns home only to go to her factory job with her brother. And in the meantime, we see there are some Terminators that arrive here on Earth. Well, I guess, you know, they're always here on Earth. They arrive back in our time, I guess you could say. And they are obviously coming to seek out Dora, to, you know, because she holds the fate of the universe in her hands. And of course we get these two Terminators that come together and they start battling it out as, you know, the one of them, you know, and I know I'm calling the other one a Terminator. Basically Grace comes to save Dora from being, you know, killed by this Terminator at the factory. They make a daring escape, and then we get introduced to Sarah Connor, who steps in and really saves them, and then they're off together to escape the evil clutches of this Terminator. So during all this time, they find out through, you know, just convenience, I guess, that they have to travel to the United States as they are down in Mexico. There's a whole bunch of jokes made, and the person that they are reaching out to for help ends up being the Terminator, the T-800 in Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. They get together with him, and together they all get together and fight the forces of the evil Rev-9. Okay, now that's just a basic breakdown of it, okay? Altogether, I've got to tell you, this movie really felt like more of a reboot, you know, more than just like a sequel, okay? And that's in itself isn't necessarily, it's not totally a bad thing, okay? This movie itself, I thought was actually pretty good. Was it the best Terminator movie? Absolutely not. Was it a worthy sequel to Terminator 2? I can't really say that neither, but this movie was a fun movie. It was entertaining. It wasn't terrible, though there are some bad things in this film that I think happen. Altogether for this one, guys, I think you're going to have to head out to the theater and really decide for yourself what you think about this movie. Now, as I said, it feels a lot like a reboot, because what we find out here just through the course of the story is everything is kind of happening exactly what happened in the first Terminator movie and exactly what happened in the second Terminator movie, okay? So, like I said, it feels like a reboot in that sense. And again, that's in itself isn't completely a bad thing. I mean, at some point, you know, if this franchise is coming to an end, or if they want to carry it forward, it's something that's necessary. It's necessary and it has to happen. Though I gotta say that a whole lot of people are not gonna like it. So this movie starts out with, you know, like basically like a flashback of Sarah Connor when she was going crazy when she was in her younger days, talking to the government about Judgment Day. And then eventually, you know, we get some of the futuristic shots, and altogether, I've got to say, a lot of the cinematics here throughout the movie, it was pretty well done. But there are a lot of things in here that I really don't like in the movie. Like right off the bat, there are some special effects that happen in the movie that just do not look good. Like the first time we see some of the Terminators coming up, like on this beach and everything towards the beginning, the robots look really bad. I mean, they just don't look that great. Some of the action sequences, you know, it's a little too much shaky cam, a little too much going on. You can't really make sense of some of it, and that's where some of the effects seem to not hold up so well. Like, one thing I don't like is, something I've seen several times in this movie, as, there's like jumping scenes. You see somebody jumping through the air and everything, and it just looks so fake. Sometimes I wonder why they even try to do these kinds of things in these kinds of movies. Now, some of the things that I did like was there was some points where the robots actually looked pretty good, even like the liquid metalish kind of stuff that the new Terminator was made out of. Well, it was actually looked pretty good, but again, some of the graphics here were not all that great. We did get a couple of times where we heard the good old Terminator theme, which were at a couple of appropriate times, but. So, like I said, I think the movie itself was decent. The cinematics were, I don't know, there was some things that just weren't handled that well. The acting, I gotta say, the acting was all pretty well done. The only thing, my only real complaints is Linda Hamilton's character just seemed to be... It didn't seem like our classic Sarah Connor. She seemed a little too on edge the whole time. There was some scenes with her and Grace, basically her and this new like Terminator human hybrid kind of. And I know I'm calling it a Terminator hybrid because she's not a Terminator, but she kind of is, really. There's just some scenes here where they're not really getting along, and it doesn't feel like we really ever got any character development with these two to kind of deserve that. I mean, they obviously have some issues here that we don't really get fleshed out. She just don't really like her that much, which I think is just bad writing on for the Sarah Connor character. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in here, he's playing, his name is actually Carl, not just the T-800 or the Terminator. He came in, I thought he actually did pretty decent in his role. Had a couple funny parts, funny one-liners. Obviously, like I said, this isn't going to be the best representation of Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Terminator, but Arnold Schwarzenegger came in and did a pretty good job. I think all these actors did good for what they were being asked to do. More of the bad things that have to do with it really have to do more with the writing and the way this film progresses. Now, this film, it jumped like a few minutes into the movie, it jumped right into the action, and it goes kind of non-stop, and then it slows down a little bit. We get a little bit more action, then it really slows down, and then of course we get more action towards the final scene. I think the balance, the pacing itself seemed to be okay, but the balance of how it all worked out, just for me, didn't seem to work out that great, the way they balanced it all. But altogether, like I said, I think this is a movie you guys are going to have to really decide for yourself if it's something that you want to go see and spend the money on, and ultimately decide for yourself if you like or not. Now, there are obviously, and I was saying earlier that this movie seems more like a reboot, because that's what it seems like, where we see that this character, who is Dora, she basically is she's basically the new Sarah Connor throughout the movie, but then we find out that she is the new John Connor, actually, which I got to admit, when they said this part in the movie, I was actually laughing, because I'm sitting there like, okay, so she, and they said it in the movie too, she's the new John Connor. So I'm sitting there, immediately my mind flashes to thinking about Jane Foster Thor, okay? And it made me laugh, because I'm like, no, she's not the new John Connor, she's just the new person who will lead the resistance in the future. She's not the new John Connor. Like, something about, I don't know. You guys will probably laugh about that down in the comments below, or maybe you won't laugh about it and you'll be mad at me for it. But really, that's ultimately what happens. I mean, is literally said in this movie, which really, it kind of made me chuckle. Now, like I said, this character that Natalia Reyes is playing, she's playing, her actual character's name, I want to say, is Danny Ramos. Danny Ramos? Something like that. I say Dora the Explorer because we see at the very beginning of the movie, I mean, and I'm not just saying that because she's Mexican or anything, it has nothing to do with that, but at the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to her, she has her backpack, she gets home, she seems like she's been exploring, she seems a lot like Dora the Explorer. I mean, hell, her brother's name is Diego, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know in the cartoon it was her cousin or whatnot, but really, guys, like, tell me that she wasn't playing Dora the Explorer, okay? Tell me she wasn't. She was. This character was Dora the Explorer. So, anyway, but altogether, just some of those kinds of funny things that happen in this movie. And again, it really seems like they just took the first two, the Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, kind of mashed them together and come up with this new story. And like I said, the character performances were pretty good. Some of the cinematics were shot, like with the graphics and everything. Altogether, I thought this movie, it was pretty good and entertaining. Now, there are some other things, that some people will probably call out as maybe having an agenda or anything like that. I don't really see any of that in this movie. There's not even really any kind of like real feminist overtones, which I've seen some people out there saying, and I honestly don't see where they're getting that from, other than the fact that we have some strong female characters in here that are in the lead roles, and that's just kind of how Terminator has really always been. Like I said, there's parts where Linda Hamilton's character is just a little over the top with her bitchiness and everything, and it's like I don't see that really being Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor, she was just a well-written, just strong character, and she was just, that's just it. But in here, it seems like they took it a step further and tried to make her seem like a bitch, and I just don't really see that being Sarah Connor's character. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like I said, his character was kind of redone. Some people aren't gonna like that, some of the things that he says and does, but I thought it was actually quite hilarious. Plenty of jokes here made throughout. Obviously, there's the thing where these characters are trying to get north of the border because they're down in Mexico trying to get into the United States. They made some pretty funny jokes about that as well. But altogether, I don't know. There's just some of the things in this movie that just aren't handled great. Like one part of the final battle scene where they're sitting there on this air freighter taking off and things like that. Just some of it just seemed a little nonsensical. They get there, they end up crashing at this dam, something that just seemed a little too stereotypical. But that's what these kind of movies are. They're just action movies with just things interwoven in there, just like certain things. And again, this movie wasn't terrible. It wasn't the best sequel I've ever seen, and I'm sure there's some people gonna be out there gonna say like, oh, this sequel was unnecessary. But guys, in case you don't know, most sequels are unnecessary, okay? And you gotta think, this movie came out here in 2019. This is 28 years later after the movie that it's supposed to be following up came out, okay? So there's a big gap in there, and a lot of people won't like it for that gap. And at the same time, we as fans sometimes, I think, have our expectations set a little bit too high, especially when it comes to a sequel, because guys, it's a sequel. Of course it's unnecessary. Of course it's not going to be as good as the first one. Of course it's not going to be as good as even the second one, which seems to be even more beloved than the first one. Now, some people have called out because at the beginning of this movie, John Connor gets killed right off the bat, which kind of negates everything that happens, but it really doesn't, because that's really something that plays into these types of movies. Something they could easily play on is because just because they avoided the one future where Skynet was going to take over, we see they got a future where another company takes over. It reminds me of something that's going on in the X-Men comic books right now. And I know you're probably thinking like, comic books, movies, come on, Trinity, come on, man. But seriously, just because they avoided one future doesn't mean that there's not another future, that it doesn't still happen. There are still people out there who are making this robot technology and these AIs that eventually decide to take over. That's just how it happens, just the world of robotics and AIs. So naturally, at some point they're going to say like, hey, here's where it started at, let's go back and stop it. And that's what happens at the very beginning of the movie, as we see that John Connor actually ended up getting killed there, like at the end of Terminator 2. So, or I guess the end of I know it's confusing, guys, it's confusing. So altogether, I didn't think it was a bad part 3 or a bad sequel to the sequel. It was okay. Is this movie for everybody? Certainly not. Is it going to make a lot of the longtime fans of the franchise happy? Absolutely not. But this movie does a lot of good things. It does some good things, and it does definitely have its shortcomings. Like I said, for me, a lot of the CGI graphics just weren't quite up to par with what they should be, considering all the technology that these companies and these studios have at their disposal. But altogether, guys, like I said, I thought it was an enjoyable movie. It wasn't terrible, and like I said, I think this is one that you, the fans, you, the people who want to go out and watch this movie, are gonna have to decide whether you like it or not. I can't say that for you. Like I said, for me, I thought it was a pretty good movie. If I had a scale that I went off of, I would probably put this movie at about a 6.5, maybe a 7-ish altogether. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was just good. It was just good. Like I said, nothing I could really pick out and tear down about this movie other than like a few of the nonsensical things, the Dora the Explorer thing, and then some of the graphics that were just absolutely terrible considering what we got, the technology that we have going on these days. You know, I've also got to say, for all of the things and however much they pulled from the first Terminator and the second Terminator movie to make this movie, you know, all the callbacks and references and how it's kind of really a reboot of all that, there's this particular scene in the movie when they're on the air freighter that I'm sitting there like, why didn't you pull this punch? Okay, they pulled the whole thing with Sarah Connor saying, I'll be back. They did a whole lot of these just kind of stereotypical things of the Terminator franchise, but there's this scene on the air freighter where the Terminators are sitting there fighting, and they get Diego Luna's they get the Rev 9 kicked off. He's falling off this air freighter, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is standing there looking down, and I'm sitting there thinking like, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you pull that punch, Tim Miller? Why didn't you have Arnold look down at him and say, "Hasta la vista, baby"? It just didn't happen. Why did you not do that in this film with all the other things that you've done? I don't know. But let me know down in the comments below. Let's have a discussion, guys. Did you see Terminator Dark Fate? If so, what did you think about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's have a conversation. Maybe we'll be talking about this soon on the Morning Movie Chat. Gee, imagine that. That's all I have for this video today, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Second Street Marvel. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click the little bell, and make sure you know that you give this video a like or a dislike if you don't like it. It's all good. I don't look into it that much. It doesn't really hurt my feelings. But while you're at it, make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week. Get out and watch this movie. Let me know what you think about it, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.